And I ended up deciding to come to Augustana as a pre-med major, which is quite fun. Because I dropped it within one term of taking a chemistry class. And so I think my international interest really started to come out at that moment. My grandmother is from Europe, Western Europe, Spain and France. And so I'd always had this international conscience, international interest, as well through my earlier experiences when I was a participant in Culver Academy's leadership program with students from all over Latin America, the Middle East. And so I had this international awareness or interest, but I didn't know how I could find it here. And it's pretty funny because now, after I dropped chemistry, I looked into international business in Spanish, and I'm about to embark on a graduate degree in Spain 4 years later. It's not how my journey started, but it's almost come full circle. And so what I'd like to do now is share with you what I've been doing since Augustana through my most recent role. Some of the decisions I had to make, the changes, the varied path that might seem disjointed to some of you, but it's also very related and tied into my values, things that I was interested in, and also helped me to achieve some of my longer term goals as well. I just want to point out that as I share my story with you, it doesn't mean it's the boilerplate and it's your story. Each of you are on your own path as you're here at Augustana. That goes for the faculty as well as the students and people here from beyond campus. And so I think, as I share my story, you reflected for a moment there on your values. And maybe as I speak about my experiences, relate it back to yours and your journey and certain decisions you've made along the way or you would like to make going forward in the future. All right, so I'm going to sit down before I break the stage. I just want to share, my professional experiences, but first it all began at Augustana. I studied accounting and business. In fact, one of the accounting faculty, John Delaney, was very good at nudging me into the accounting major, and I'm extremely thankful for that, because without it, I wouldn't have had a job out of Augustana. So my first job was at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And I had looked at jobs at Teach for America, John Deere and Company, where I'd done an internship, and in a variety of other places overseas, and with the help of much of the people on campus. But only one company offered me a job, and it was the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board writes the policies that governments have to follow when they're doing their accounting throughout the country. And it's very closely related to the financial board that writes the rules that all companies, public and private, have to follow as well. So even though it was the only opportunity before me, it actually was probably the best job you can get in the accounting field coming out of school. So I was very lucky that the one organization that called me back was this firm. When I joined, it was a small group, very similar to Augustana, a family environment, something you really appreciate, right? Close relationships. And I was actually not an expert in governmental accounting. I took 2 chapters of governmental accounting one summer at Augustana. Now the curriculum is much more robust and much more focused on this program, but I had no experience in it. So I had to hit the ground running kind of with an open mindset and learn on the fly, which has become a common trend in my experiences. So what was most applicable was the things I learned on campus, the things I did on campus that were very related to liberal arts education. That included the research I was doing to write accounting standards, the actual writing of rules with project managers, and then presenting papers to the board of trustees at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So that was extremely valuable, and really Augustana positioned me in a great place for that opportunity. When I left the Gatsby, I went on to work at KPMG in San Francisco, and I was really interested in a new experience and applying those skills that I had learned at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to cut out for consulting and these high-paying jobs that demand your time and essentially take over your life. And because of that, I was a bit hesitant at first, but I jumped right in. And my job, everything I learned at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, from a technical perspective, once again became irrelevant because I was now in a very financial space and working with clients from all over the world, internationally, in Asia and Europe, and had great exposure to cutting edge innovation, being in California, where a lot of new technologies and new innovation is being developed. So it was a great place to go, and I learned so much, and I was there for 16 months, and extremely busy, kind of like I was when I was on campus, and but learning a lot, building great relationships, but I wasn't happy. I didn't feel fulfilled, I guess you can say. And I think there's a certain plateau that you might reach in certain jobs or roles you find if you're not fully invested in the experience. You can succeed and excel, but it won't bring you that personal satisfaction that following one of your interests, your passions might bring. And so I was kind of reaching that point. And so 16 months into KPMG, living in the middle of the city, I actually see some people in the audience that I was in San Francisco with that visited from the program here. I quit my job. And I didn't have another job lined up. And I really had to validate that decision with a lot of people to confirm I wasn't crazy, but also to help and encourage me that it was the right step for me. And I'll talk more about that decision and why I made it shortly here. But now I want to rewind back to when I was at Augustana. As Coach Giovanni mentioned, I played basketball here. And so because you play basketball, I don't want to say it's a year-round sport, but it's a year-round sport. And if you're committed, you're constantly training and preparing for the next season. So I was unable to study abroad outside of our great experience in East Asia, in China and Japan, and very interested in going abroad again. And I didn't know where I could go because I only had one term I could do it, and it was spring term my senior year. And so I sat down with my advisor, Mrs. Marmé, and I said, where can I go? She told me you can go to West Africa, Ghana and Senegal. And I said, okay, I've never been. I've been to Europe some, Asia with the team. I like new experiences, why not? This was the end of my sophomore year, start of my junior year. And then we sat down and it was this giant puzzle of seeing the classes I had to take every term to make it work. And the faculty were very supportive in offering independent studies, summer classes, to help me accomplish this goal. So when I went to West Africa, Ghana and Senegal, with the group from here, this is 2010, so it was a bit different, the structure. But we were in Ghana and Senegal studying the history and culture of West Africa. And me, I've never been to Africa. I kind of had some awareness about interacting with cultures, but this was all new to me. And it was also my liberal arts classes, because I'd done all my business and accounting. So I was challenged to take music and dance, art, and history. History I can handle. Music and dance, Dr. Fouts, is a bit challenging for me, as you know. So it challenged me in ways I hadn't been challenged through my actual core majors. But it also opened my eyes to the immense opportunities on the continent of Africa. And so through the music and dance, homestays, art experience, I really connected with the culture of the people and experienced the challenges they're facing, as well as the way business works there and can drive change within their communities. At the same time, I was taking a history class, learning about all of the challenges of the continent. Dating back to internal tribal challenges, to the slave trade, to colonialism, and the way European and external forces sort of dictated the future of the continent, at least in the present, but it's carried on to the future. And so because of that, I became very passionate about Africa. But I didn't know what I could do, how I could make that connection to this job I was just starting in Connecticut, at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, the best job you can get in accounting. You know, walking away from the accounting field seems silly. And so I had this passion that I was trying to build into something, I didn't know what. And I was working in accounting throughout the day. And then strange things started happening to me. In Connecticut, I would meet a Ghanaian professional, an insurance expert, working with the same organization. And he invited me to join his organization, his nonprofit. Then my mentor, when I joined the Government Accounting Standards Board, had been to Ghana twice, and they do programs promoting entrepreneurship and leadership. This is through Babson College. And so we started talking a lot, and he introduced me to their vice provost, and somehow I snuck my way into one of their programs, teaching their curriculum that I had no exposure to, and built a great relationship with that leader of the programs, the vice provost, who's now the president at another college. And because of these chance happenings that kept crossing my paths, I started to say, wow, I'm in a position where I can't just keep ignoring my connection to Africa. There must be a reason that I went and that these things keep happening. So then I went on to KPMG, and I still had these same relationships. I was starting to foster more relationships in Africa on my own, more proactively, reaching out to different organizations, individuals, collecting information on ways I could get more engaged. And so around the middle of my term with KPMG, 8 months in, I did another program in Rwanda, and I was really on a hard project at the time that was really challenging me, right? And so because of that, I said, okay, I can't take this anymore. This was much earlier in the year than when I left in December. But I started thinking, okay, how can I strategically prepare myself for that transition? All the while still working on these projects internationally with some big clients, and really learning a lot and taking a lot from that experience. And so, because of all of this, I came to the point, all right, it's the end of the year, my projects, most of them are finished. I can either assume more responsibility, I just got a pay raise, a big bonus. I can assume more responsibility with the firm and then leave later, but I'll put the firm in a worse off position, because then it will be harder to transition to work, and I want to make sure I maintain good relationships with the partners and my colleagues. So I left just before Christmas in 2012, and as I said, I left without a job. So you're thinking, what do you do when you don't have a job? Well, you go sleep on someone's couch. You just need to figure out where you're going to sleep. So I went abroad. I went to Andorra, a small nation in the Pyrenees Mountains, lived with a good friend of mine from high school. And I spent 5 months abroad. Based in Andorra, I also had a great experience with a former Augustana teammate in the Republic of Georgia. But I was traveling in Europe. I had come to Africa to do another entrepreneurship program. But really I was focused on research and building skills and experiences that would put me in a position to call someone up or to contact someone that would want to hire me. And so, and another point that I should add is that when I left, there was this job that I really, really wanted, that I thought was lined up. And I had really connected with 3 or 4 people already at the company, the African Leadership Academy, a residential school in Johannesburg, South Africa. And so I said, okay, by May, I'll have the job, I'll be moving to South Africa. This can be a good sabbatical, an opportunity to reflect and think objectively about where I want to go. All these things that I was taking the entrepreneurs through myself. And while I was there, I didn't hear back from that organization as early as I thought. So, okay, being an accountant, I started planning alternatives. And I had applied for many more jobs, and didn't hear back from over half of them. And I ended up coming back from Spain, or Andorra, I should say, without a job. So here I took this big leap of faith, jumping into the great unknown, and the dream job of mine, sharing leadership development and entrepreneurship, business skills with young African leaders that are going to change the trajectory of that continent, wasn't there. So I came back to the United States. I had my slice of humble pie, and I said, oh gosh, what am I going to do now? And that was an extremely challenging time for me, because, and it's, I think, experienced by a lot of people that take this risk and pursue something that they're really passionate about. is that it's not easy right away, and it won't always work out how you plan it. And so that was very challenging for me to maintain a level of patience with the process, to let it unfold, as well as to stay persistent in thinking I need to get myself a job and I need to get a job in what I love. And so it was that tough balance of trying to be patient and persistent while I was abroad. I ended up coming back from Andorra to go work in a leadership academy, Culver Academies in Indiana, for 6 weeks. And while I was there, I got a call from the founder of the African Leadership Academy, and he said, "Hey, I'm sorry it took us so long to get back to you. I just wanted to tell you the job that we had offered you, or that you were interested in, is no longer available." And so that's how the call starts, and I'm thinking, oh no, this keeps getting better. And but then he says, "I have an opportunity for you that in one of my other companies, the African Leadership Network. It's very focused on entrepreneurship. It's not teaching young leaders, but I think with your experiences, it would be relevant to you." So I said, "Yes, please." And so I met the CEO of the African Leadership Network 2 weeks later, and then 2 weeks after that, I was on a plane to Nairobi, not really sure what I was getting myself into. Just to give you an understanding of what the African Leadership Network does, it's a platform that connects African leaders across the 54 countries on Africa, as well as in other countries in Europe, Asia, and the West. And so it's a platform to connect CEOs, entrepreneurs, government ministers, passionate about moving the continent forward. And we do that in a variety of ways, mainly through events that we hold to promote collaboration between leaders from different countries, different regions, different industries. Whether it's economically driven through a business opportunity or it's a social initiative, we give them a platform and space to build relationships and to start these sorts of collaborations to drive change on the continent. And that's really what I came back from Africa passionate about, was understanding that business and the private sector, specifically entrepreneurship in an emerging economy like this, can have significant impact and drive change, both socially and economically for people at the bottom of the pyramid, as well as on a macro level with large African corporations that then bring on lots of people into their companies and have a huge macroeconomic impact on their country as well as other regions. So while I was there, I met lots of very influential people, learned a lot about different industries, different countries, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of new opportunities on the continent and around the world, and gave me a passion for sharing my experiences so that I can then gain more interest and kind of change the perception of how people on campus here and around the world think about Africa. Because what you see in the media about the Ebola crisis, which is very, very sad at the moment, what you see about extremist attacks in Nigeria and Somalia, these are the things you'll see on the news. But there are a lot of exceptional stories on the ground that aren't told. And so as African Leadership Network and some of our partner organizations and through our members, the goal is to change the way you think about that continent and to drive change through business and public and private sector cooperation. So that's my story. I was on a variety of different paths, probably an accelerated career in business, but I had this aha moment at Augustana that sort of changed my trajectory and added a new opportunity or interest to my agenda or my passions. And while each experience seems a bit different, they actually built upon each other, and it all started here at Augustana. So while I was in accounting and KPMG and the Gatsby, all of those technical experiences were more relevant to the job at African Leadership Network than I ever could have expected. And as I mentioned, all those research, liberal arts skills that I had developed, communications, were just as relevant at every step of the way, and the willingness to learn on the fly and be proactive. So that's just the point, I guess, is that even though experiences might seem disconnected, there's a lot of common trends and themes, and who you are as a person will impact the decisions you make along the way. So I'd like to talk to you about 3 decisions I made that were probably big ones on my agenda. One would be when I joined KPMG. So I joined KPMG after working at the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and I told you I was already doing work in Africa. So the question might be, why would I go work in accounting if I already know what my passion is? And so this decision was hard because you have sort of your dream jobs that you want to achieve, but you also need the right skills and experiences to present to employers. And I'm also sort of, I am loyal to things I start. So I was in the middle of my certified public accountant process. And so I went to KPMG because I wanted to continue to build the right skill set and experiences, not just in a professional sense, but also I liked Africa, but I hadn't been there yet much other than my program there. So I had to start building a network and experiences with people that are actually working on the continent. It's fun and fine to say that I went there and interacted with faculty that live in the US and with people that I experienced the program with in the US, but as the faculty actually at our school do as well, to really be immersed in the experience, to get to know people on a personal level. That's when you start to understand the challenges and the real opportunities there. So I said, well, I can't just jump right in and say, call someone up and say I've done it, because I haven't. And that is why I went to KPMG, to continue to build that network focused on Africa and international development. The next big decision I made was when I left KPMG. So this ties into the same mindset, but financially it didn't make any sense to a lot of people, specifically my parents. But I think I realized as I was at KPMG that even while you're in the United States, you can only do so much. You kind of have to go out, pursue your international interests, and get on the ground. And I have a lot of interest in Europe, so that's why I left as well. But I think tying back into why I joined KPMG, the reason I left was to broaden my experiences in the international space and really focus full-time on my interest in Africa and international development. Because there's a difference between having 2 full-time jobs or a full-time job and doing things on the side, as opposed to really fully committing yourself to an interest and passion you have. And I took that leap of faith when I left KPMG, and it ended up being the right decision. There's one other key decision I think I made in the last 4 years that I'd just like to share, and this ties back to, I think, understanding what you really value and what you're really passionate about. While I was living in Kenya, I just moved there about 6 weeks before this horrible terrorist attack happened at Westgate Mall, where extremist terrorists from the Al-Shabaab organization took over a mall in Nairobi, 3 kilometers from my office and my apartment. And I had just hit the ground running, was working hard, and then this happened. And then it became a question of personal safety, right? And I'm getting phone calls from everyone. Are you sure you really want to stay in Nairobi? It's not safe, please come home. And these comments were really, I think, shaping my own mindset, because I was hearing from people that aren't experiencing the work I was doing and the life I was living on the ground. Very valid concerns, I will say. But I ended up, after spending a month out of Kenya over the holidays, deciding to stay. And the reason I stayed in Kenya was because I strongly believed in what I was doing, and I was really passionate about the work and the impact of the organization. So this decision, I think, really defined me and led to an incredible experience, and it sort of proves or validates that I was invested in what I was doing and that I was passionate about what I was doing. And I think at some point in time, people will look at you and think you're crazy, but you're the only one that can make those decisions to know if you're really doing the right thing for you as a person, for who you are as a person, and for what you believe in. So those 3 decisions were extremely challenging for me, and I kept going back to my values, that I went through the exercise with the entrepreneurs, just like I mentioned to you before, and thinking, okay, I'm passionate about international interests, I'm passionate about my family, business background, how can I have an impact socially as I would love to? So, now I'd like to share, I think, the 5 key things I learned along the way. I think this is most valuable for the students, but I think it's very relevant to the faculty and others from the community here today. So 5 lessons that really, I think, helped me when I joined the basketball team at Augustana and came to Augustana, but also as I moved on in my career. The first is invest in relationships. So, as Coach Giovanni mentioned, I met Kim Bruner when I was 18 years old in Bloomington. And it was just a happenstance wanting to get me to come play basketball at the school. And one thing my mother always drilled in me when I was young was you need to make sure you maintain strong relationships, with people that can help you along the way. And so Kim was one of them. A lot of my faculty in this room today, Coach Giovanni, many mentors. But I think it's about investing in people and relationships as opposed to networking. Those of you going to Pro Fair today, best of luck to you. But I think when I term it this way, I'm not saying networking. I'm saying invest in your colleagues, your peers, your teammates, your classmates, your mentors, the people below you as well that you can help bring along. And that has proven to be one of the most valuable things to me along the way, most valuable learning points along the way on my journey. And I think when you invest in people and make an interest in them on a one-on-one basis, it really resonates with them. And it doesn't mean that you need to get a job from them tomorrow. It means I know John Delaney and I will see him in 5 years and maybe he can help me set up a golf outing in Bedford, which he likes to do. So that would be one of my recommendations to all of you here is invest in relationships on campus, off campus, and relationships that can add value to your life, but also that you can add value to others. So think of it as handing off the mentoring role to others along the way. The second lesson that I've really learned throughout my journey the last 4 years, which is very short, I admit, is to build skills and experiences relevant to your values, relevant to your interests. Because everyone will need a job out of school, and it might not be what you're truly passionate about, but you still have an opportunity to build relevant skills, relevant experiences that can help you get where you want to be, whether it's 2 years out of school, whether it's while you're still on campus. And I think for me, if you look at what I've done, while I was working in accounting, I was also trying to build a resume that I could at some point use to supplement my new career, my passion for international relations and international development. So I would challenge you, I guess, to focus on, as you grow, the types of skills or experiences you can have on campus, even as faculty, that will get you to that next step that you would like to achieve. The third point that I'd like to share with you that really helped me from step to step is how to earn the trust and respect of your colleagues and of your peers. And I think this stems back to when I was younger as well, but also in athletics throughout my life. And when you join an organization or a school, the method I've always used is to be very humble, be very hardworking, lead by example, invest in people on a one-on-one basis. And that's how you gain respect and trust. If you join an organization or a group or a team and you know all the answers right when you walk in with your Augustana diploma, it's going to present challenges. And I think Augustana does a great job in preparing you to work hard, to be humble, to lead by example. And much of my experiences growing up did that. So I would say as you move on in your education at Augustana or in your professional careers, think about the way you approach people and relationships, and focus on earning their trust and respect, and that's what will open doors for you to new opportunities, to share your opinions and experiences in the workplace, and lead to new relationships with people. The fourth learning point I want to share is to embrace the journey, even the challenges and the adversity. It's so relevant whether you realize it or not. I experienced a lot of challenges while I was at Augustana, both personally and professionally, but even much more when I left. And I think you'll learn as much from your failures as you will from what you're learning in the classroom. And so, my experiences unemployed in Europe, as well as a variety of other incidents, taught me a lot of things that are hard to objectively take a step back and recognize at that point in time. And so, just getting back to the way we started today's conversation, looking at yourself objectively without emotion, having the ability to be self-aware and having strong relationships that can sort of validate your thinking and help you get back on track when you might be down because of the failures you've experienced. So I think embrace the journey and try to, once you come to that position in your life where you can look at your experiences in a more objective sense, it will help you identify what you've been doing and where you'd like to go. And as well as taking a learning outcome from every failure, every challenge, and every success. The last point is around acting, learning, and repeating. And this is something we teach entrepreneurs, specifically from the curriculum we've used in Africa, from ideas to action. And it means you'll act, you'll either succeed or fail, and you'll learn something from it. So it comes back to this idea of starting off on a path, I suppose, whether it's in accounting, whether it's in your specific major, whether it's on the basketball team. And if you get to a point where you realize it's not the right direction for you, that's fine. Looking at it as a learning experience, and then taking those same approaches, the behavioral style that you approached it with, the values that you approached it with, and acting in a new way. It's okay to change direction. And for entrepreneurs specifically, this means, okay, act, learn from your failures, tailor your systems, your business, and then act again and see if it succeeds. But I think more importantly about this is, as you start out on a path, you'll always be able to take a step back and look at yourself objectively and think about if you're making decisions that are aligned with your values, if the work you're doing is aligned with where you want to be or what you're passionate about. And for me, this is what I did at multiple steps along my journey, and I think having that ability to take a step back and realign is very healthy and something all of you are extremely capable of. And you do it probably without recognizing it, but once you recognize that process, it can really help you take control of your career and your life and make decisions that are based on what you truly believe in your core. So with that, I think I just want to re-emphasize that your experiences build on each other whether you realize them or not. And you will always take out what you can learn from the experience and use it in an effective way in your next role, whether it's the same line of business, same field, or in a completely new adventure, whether it's in your community or whether it's in an organization or within your family. And so I think your experiences build on each other, and you take the skills that will help you achieve your goals. And so as you all leave today, I think I would challenge you to have the patience and also the persistence to make an effort to understand who you are, what your core values are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what you want to achieve, what you enjoy doing. Because once you have a sense for who you are as an individual, you can then start seeing how it aligns with what you want to do and your interests that you have. And it's very relevant to today's theme of identity as you look at what you're doing right now, either as a student, as a professional, as a faculty member, administration here. And so I think there's a relation between who you are and what you do, but always stick to your core values and stick to what you truly believe. And then if you do that and you make decisions aligned with those values, you can achieve great things. Thanks. if you have questions. Anyone have any questions for me? Yes?
What are your goals in the next 4 years?
Sure. My goal right now is to start graduate school. So I'm going to school in Spain starting next month. And then the summer following, I'll pursue economic development type opportunities internationally. So I'm interested in roles at the State Department or other platforms like World Economic Forum. I'm really looking to get into more policy-related work, hopefully, but that can change in about 2 months. So we'll see.
It was mentioned in the introduction that one of your minors was a foreign language. I'd love to know what role foreign language study plays or is playing in your life and in your career.
Sure. Foreign language studies is I think, very valuable, especially on this campus and in the world today. You're seeing more and more interaction across borders and internationally. I studied Spanish here, so relative to my career in Africa, it's not very relevant. But for me personally, I was very engaged in the language because of family reasons, and I'm going to school in Spain now, so it's almost bringing that full circle, and I hope to continue to utilize language, and to develop that in other languages. But I think I would encourage you all to look into adding a foreign language if you can, or at least being aware of it, because regardless of whether you work abroad or you work in the United States, foreign language is becoming so relevant in any workplace, given the demographics of cities across the United States and in other countries too. So. Anyone else have any questions?
Hey, Matt.
Sure.
What got you through those days when you were unemployed?
Valid question. Good question. I think, and hopefully all students here at Augustana are optimistic about their careers and their futures, and I think most faculty and everyone on campus really promote that. But I had this desire internally that I couldn't fail, or that I didn't want to fail. So whether or not it was in the line of work I was trying to achieve or another, I was really driven to try to come out of that situation with a job and something that I was passionate about. It wasn't easy, and I talked to a lot of my close colleagues and mentors and family. I needed encouragement at the time, certainly, and I also needed some reality checks as well, which is why I came back to a job, because I had plans and other outcomes. But I think that's when your support system, whether it's as mentors or as peers, is so valuable, and that really was the difference maker in that experience. And I was lucky to be with close friends and former teammates when I was abroad and family that helped encourage me for that.
How did your athletic experience here kind of help shape you and kind of help you to where you've gotten?
Sure, I think from an impact sense, my athletic experience at Augustana was the most impactful. Having the discipline and that regimented schedule really keeps you on track throughout your experience, but the community that Coach Giovanni and you have built here, and the relationships you make with your teammates and others on campus through that experience really shape you and define you. And I think a lot of the skills I've developed is because of the athletic experience at Augustana. And whether it's athletics or whether it's student groups on campus, I think that extracurricular experience really is what will separate people when they leave Augustana from others that come from larger institutions. And it's where you learn those softer skills, those intangible skills that you can't learn in a classroom. And so the athletic experience was instrumental in everything I've been able to accomplish. And thank you.
And Matt, how the liberal arts study help you with your career? Like study everything here.
So when I started here, I was still kind of trying to find my way into what major, because I left chemistry. But I think, as I left Augustana, I started to realize more and more that those softer skills on thinking critically, thinking creatively, strategically, learning to research and write professionally, writing research methods that they teach you. I think those are the skills that were so applicable to all of my jobs. And I think I mentioned I didn't know much about any job before I got into it. So the approach to the liberal arts studies and my experiences here were pretty much the reason I was able to get jobs and then be successful to some degree in each job. So very relevant and very much a big part of that.
Going off of that question, how do you think the Augustana experience helped you overcome challenges?
Sure. Sorry. So I think the greatest challenge was when I was unemployed, but more importantly, I want to talk about when I'm in the workplace and when you're interacting with people that come from different institutions that might be more focused on what you've studied or from more prominent institutions. I think the way that I approached people, sort of building a relationship with them, trying to remain humble, and in that sense, that was very valuable to when challenges came up, disputes or disagreements, knowing when to speak up and when to say, okay, I think maybe you're on the right track. So those types of softer skills I learned through extracurriculars here at Augustana, I think, more so than in the classroom. But I think, those were the key types of takeaways from that experience. You can only use technical knowledge so much when you're encountering adversity and challenges in the profession, it seems. So I think I'll always go back to the softer skills and the impact of that diversified experience here on campus beyond the classroom can help you be prepared for those settings.
Sure. You mentioned that you've had a couple of timeouts, or what would appear to be times when you were not doing things. And for most people, when they think about being out of a job, they think of sitting on the couch and waiting for the phone to ring, or hoping that something good happens. That isn't how you operate in your downtimes or even during your sabbatical. Could you explain a little what you were doing even in those times of non-employment or not officially associated with
Sure.
earning capacity?
I think, and this is something I've been talking to students about in smaller classes and groups for the past couple of days, but I knew what I wanted to get, but I didn't have the actual experience on my resume or relationships in my network to help get it. So those downtimes were really focused on how can I build experiences, whether it's doing research and creating sort of documents or research agenda around what I'm interested in, or proactively contacting organizations that or just individuals that can help me get to where I want to be. So I was pretty busy focused on those two efforts, and actually while I was working as well, because it's important to be proactive. Once you do kind of understand your core values and what you're interested in and what you want to achieve, you need to build a resume and an agenda that aligns with the people that you want to join. And so that's what I was doing when I was abroad and unemployed.
One other thing, when you were a student here, you were pretty involved in a lot of different things. What advice would you give for students that want to try and do that tend to get spread too thin and have an adverse effect? How were you able to successfully juggle all the things that you were doing? Do you have any specific suggestions? Or I know you're a very smart guy, but it takes more than just intelligence to make it happen. What do you think?
Sure. I think I was just really encouraging students recently to be open to talking to new student groups, to new majors, really broadening their perspective holistically while you're on campus to take advantage of those opportunities. And that does involve getting engaged in a lot of different organizations. You have to internally sort of prioritize, your hierarchy or system of, groups or organizations or activities. And so I think for me, it was academics and athletics, and then the other groups I was involved in, I sort of had to delegate the amount of time that I would commit to that weekly, monthly, etc. And so I encourage people to really be proactive in starting to get involved in new opportunities, new organizations, new activities, but also to be cognizant of just that fact that there's only 24 hours in a day, and you need to make sure that your priorities are in order as it relates to your schooling and other obligations you came in for. So.
Sure. Besides your core values, what other factors would you say help drive you to find new opportunities on campus at Augustana and beyond?
I think it all starts with the relationships and experiences you have. And so whether it's an experience you have on campus or professionally, you build relationships and networks that you might not know can help you in some way 8 years down the road, 20 years down the road when you graduate from Augustana. And so as I started coming across activities or new interests, I started thinking, how can I set myself up for that experience? And so around how I made the decisions, beyond the values, a lot of it was talking to people that had experience in the fields or roles I was interested in, and in getting feedback on different organizations, doing research on organizations and things, organizations and initiatives related to my interests. And that gave me a general sense for where I wanted to potentially go, but I think talking with mentors and having sounding boards really helps. And so that's why I would encourage all of you to invest in relationships and trying to identify someone as a mentor or advisor, whether it's your roommate or your father or a faculty member or a stranger that you meet randomly. I think having a sounding board, that's someone that can objectively help you think through the process that you're going through at that time, really adds a lot of value beyond just your internal decision-making process. Any final questions? All right, thank you so much.